Okay, thank you. We're starting now on item 9, the report to Aberdeenshire Licensing Board on the fees review. And we have Lauren Cowie, I think, presenting the report. Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you very much, Chair. The report before you sets out the proposals to increase certain licensing fees to ensure that there's full cost recovery of the cost of providing the alcohol licensing service. The Licensing Scotland Act 2005 provides a mixed approach to the licensing fees. So the majority of them are set by legislation, and so we've got no discretion. However, there are a couple of the types of application where there's a little bit more discretion afforded to the board. So the existing fees were set prior to the implementation of 2005 Act, the statutory ones. However, the discretionary ones were reviewed 3 years ago. At that point, it was agreed that inflationary increases were going to be applied on a yearly basis. So that was November 2019, that was agreed. However, due to the impact of the pandemic on the licence trade, it was felt inappropriate then at that time to increase the fees, given that they weren't actually allowed to sell alcohol at the time. However, it's now appropriate to review those discretionary fees again and to consider applying inflationary increases from April 2024. So that's making sure that the new fees will come in April 23 with the inflationary increases then the following year, to keep in track with inflation there. As you'll see from section 2.5 of the report, the number of applications across Aberdeenshire over the last few years indicate that most applications that we're getting aren't straightforward and they require further examination, work with applicants on either the application itself or through negotiation with parties. And so the cost of that has obviously increased, and the fee that we currently charge doesn't cover the cost. Therefore, we're proposing some increases. As you'll see from the appendices, we're looking to go out to consultation on the fees for major variations and transfers to come into play from next year. So that's from April 24, not November 2019. I've clearly taken that from the last one, so apologies for that. But since the publication of the report, additional costs have come to light that are legitimate costs that we need to include. And so the proposed fees are actually going to be 225, that's 225 for a transfer and £420 for a major variation. So the method of consultation, if the board agrees to this today, will be electronic in the main through the Engage platform, and we will email out to all of our licence holders for the ones that we have email addresses for, which is by and far the majority of them. They'll also use social media as well as getting in touch with community councils and our statutory partners to spread the word about the consultation. The appendices outline current fees, proposed fees, and as well as the national average that we have as well. So that's slightly out of kilter now that we've added in the additional costs, but as I say, 225 for a transfer and 420 for a major variation. Please note that the replacement personal licence fee has already been increased from 10 to 20, and I'm not proposing any further increases on that. The responses from the consultation will be reported back to the board in February with proposed fees coming in from the 1st of April 2023. I'm happy to try to answer any questions that the board might have.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Just to point out, the recommendations are on page 111. So it's to agree to the formal consultation and then agree to the results of the consultation be reported back to Licensing Board with a view to introducing any changes to fees. So today, really, the issue for us isn't, what they're set at. It's to agree to the consultation. So have we any questions or comments? Mrs. Nichol?
Yeah, just a wee comment on the consultation, really. I'm aware that this is the busiest time of year for all the licence trade, so it would be great if, whilst it starts on the 15th, if we can really push it in the new year so that part after the busy time, so people get to view it. Thanks.
Absolutely, it's definitely not the best time of year to do this. Unfortunately, it's just the way that it's kind of worked out to make sure that we can get the fees in place for next year. But I'll definitely make a note of that and ask our comms team to push that again in just after the new year.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Goodall.
Just for clarification and my own information, we're licensing hypnotists. Is that a new thing? And also, is that theatrical hypnotists or medical hypnotists?
To be honest, it's any kind of hypnotist, I believe, but I'll bring Fiona in, who I think has a bit more background knowledge on hypnotists.
Thank you for that. It is performances of theatrical hypnotism, and this is split between the board as licensing authority and the council, and the relevant licensing authorities who issues either a premises license, which would be the licensing board, or a public entertainment license, which would be Aberdeenshire Council. It's not new. It's been around since 1952 or 58. I can't quite remember the year. But up till now, we've never charged a fee for it. We don't get many, to be truthful, and it's the hypnotist that has to obtain the permission, not the premises where the performance is taking place. So medical hypnotism is exempt. It's theatrical hypnotism that applies.
I can ask through the chair a supplementary question. How much do we expect to, how many applicants do we expect to get per year? You said that's a relatively new thing that we're doing. Do we expect to get a few applicants for this license?
No, it's not. It's not new. It's been on the go since the 1950s. We maybe get 4 or 5 a year, most of which are issued to public entertainment premises. So it would maybe be 1 to 2 that the board would do per year, if that. And given COVID, there has been a downturn in application over the past few years, but we would expect that to rise again now that premises are open for business again. So it's not new. We're just seeking to introduce a fee to cover the costs of administering it.
Thanks, Fiona. I didn't mean, no, I do apologise. I did realise you meant it's from the 1950s, but I was referring to the fact that we're charging a fee now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, interesting question. That never crossed my mind that there were different types of hypnosis, but of course there are. Any more questions or comments from members? No. Okay, in that case, if we just look back at the recommendations on page 111. In terms of recommendation 1.2.1, does the board agree to a formal consultation on proposed changes to certain licensing board fees as detailed in this report and in Appendix 1 from the 15th December 2022 to the 23rd of January 2023? And I think, do we need to add in there then that these fees are not as written in the report? There will be a couple of them where they are proposed to be increased in light of additional charges, and that would be the major variation fee, and I ticked another one, the transfer. Yeah,
that's right.
okay.
Correct.
We'll make sure that that's minuted.
And the second one there is in terms of recommendation 1.2.2, does the board agree that the results of the consultation exercise be reported back to the licensing board in February with a view to introducing any changes to the fees from the 1st of April? That's 2023, obviously.
Agreed.
Yes?
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
Agreed.
Right. Thank you. And thank you for all the work that you've done on that, Lauren. At a busy time. Okay, we move on to the second item in item 9, that's 9.2, the timeline for the review of the Statement of Licensing Board policy. And again, the officer is Lauren Cowie, please.
Thank you very much. So we are on track with our licensing policy review after the last Licensing Board, we launched the consultation. So we have sent out to, in accordance with the engagement plan that we set forward with the board at October, we've sent it out to all community councils, we've sent it out to Alcohol and Drugs Partnership, we've sent it to our partners in Place Scotland, NHS Grampian. We have engaged with the lived experience forum and the officers who work with that to try and get some responses through from that element of things. We have been to 5 out of the 6 community council forums across Aberdeenshire. We were due to go to the one in Kincardine Mearns, but unfortunately that was cancelled due to a weather warning that night. So I'm just waiting to hear when that's going to be rescheduled in the hope that we can get along to them. We have actually sent it out to all of the community councils, so whether or not they were represented at a forum or not, they should have access into it. We have also shared it on social media, and we've kind of shared that a couple of times when we've been sharing both the fees consultation for the civic government fees. I took every opportunity to put in the alcohol one in there as well, so that there's another link for people to go and to have a look at there as well. We've also sent it out to all of our premises licence holders. And so we are sending it out to council services. We're trying to share this as widely as we possibly can, because the more views that we get on it, the better. So I would ask any board members, if you see it on social media, if you could share it so that your network see them as well, that we can get as many different voices on this as we possibly can, because that's really important. We are on track in terms of the consultation will finish in, say consultation, I really mean the engagement process, and that will end in January, and that gives officers a couple of weeks to look at all of the information that has come in as a result of that engagement, and then we'll look to start to discuss with board members what you want to do with the information that we've got back through from that engagement. So there have been comments made in relation to hours, in relation to over provision. We've got some comments around end of aisle promotions, and we've also got an informal session this afternoon with some of our partners. So we've got Police Scotland, and I understand that people from the NHS are going to be able to come along this afternoon as well. Our licensing standards officers will obviously have views that we'll take into consideration as well. The ones that are marked in green have been done in terms of we've sent the links out to them, and the ones that are in orange in that section 4 are ones where that's still ongoing, and that there is work still ongoing with that. But we are definitely on schedule, I believe, so far, and hopefully we'll be able to manage that going forward. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair. Oh, I think you're muted.
Muted myself. I said thank you, Lauren. And question from Mrs. Black. Dawn, please.
Yeah, just regarding us being able to share any posts, etc., to try and put the word out. Can you confirm if the licensing has its own social media presence, or is it under the normal Aberdeenshire Council?
Yeah, we don't have our own channel yet, but that's something that's maybe something that we can consider going forward. I'm not sure how many followers we'll get, but it's something that we can certainly think about. But all of the posts are being shared on the main Aberdeenshire Council web, because they've got the biggest following.
Yeah, one as a follow-up for that, it might be worthwhile us being notified when these things are going out, so that we can actively go in and look for them, as opposed to just if it happens to come up on our feeds, because we miss so much stuff that comes forward just because you're not on at the right time of day, or it doesn't get put in front of you because of the algorithms.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll make sure that I can do that.
Yeah, thank you. I would certainly agree with that observation, Dawn. And it would be good for the licensing section of Aberdeenshire Council to have its own Facebook feed. Lots of them do. You can read about bins on waste management, for instance. Schools obviously have their own LLA. So, yeah. Mr. Crowson, Jeff? You're sound off the top of your head? Thank you.
There we go. Although I bet you think better. Right. And back of the one of the council, the forums that we was at, and we was speaking about whether we should bring the 3 areas within Aberdeenshire under the same rules. I got the impression that some people was thinking that that was actually a bit further afield, like it was trying to make it the same as the whole of Scotland, even the UK. And I was just a bit concerned that people aren't getting what we're sort of speaking about doing, that it's the 3 areas within Aberdeenshire that we're wanting to pull into line. I don't know what we can do about it, but
Yeah, no, and I think that's where speaking to people, you know, comes in, and we try to explain things as clearly as we possibly can. We've had some interesting comments coming through from the community and asking us to do things that we just legally can't do. And I think that there's a lot of misunderstanding out there around what the role of the board is, about what we're actually here to do. So when I've been speaking to the forums, I did try and explain to them at the start of that, you know, we're here about the licensing objectives and what that is, but it's very difficult to distill the world of licensing into a few minutes with a community group. And so it is difficult, and I think there's a lot of misunderstanding out there that they think that we control more than we do. There's a lot of comments in around exactly what you're saying in terms of that. Should there be regional variation across Aberdeenshire? Should we go to one set of hours, for example? And some people don't understand that why there should be a difference. Other people are like, well, why should it be the same? Others are saying, well, why should you put rules in there at all? I think we should just be able to do what we want to do. So there's a huge variety of different opinions out there, and that's why the more information, the more opinions that we can get, the better, and then we can try and myth bust from there. I think it's maybe a good thing to do. That's maybe something that we could use a new social media channel to look at, a bit of myth busting out there. But you know, you've heard this, well, this is actually what the case is, you know, that kind of thing. That's something that we can take away. Our capacity is quite limited at the moment, but it's definitely something that we can maybe hopefully look at into the next year.
probably doesn't help when I bring up the drinking up time at the wrong place. Thank you.
Not at all, I wouldn't say that.
I think it's worth mentioning the one thing, the consultee that we're missing at the moment is the licensing board forum. The licensing forum, I don't know if there's any movement in that being reinstated.
So when I've been going out around the community council forums, I've been suggesting to people, you know, if we've whetted your appetite speaking about licensing, then please get in touch so that we can you know, get the forum back together. I do have an offer from someone to chair the forum to get it kind of back up and running, but we'll need a few more members before we're in a position to be able to get that up and running, because we want it to have the best possible chance that it can. But it's certainly something that we've been talking about as part of that engagement process. It's actually one of the questions in our Engage platform as well. You know, if you want to get involved with the forum, please get in touch with us. So we haven't had anyone yet, but I'm ever hopeful. And hopefully over the next wee while, when we are you know, consulting more, we're raising the profile of the board as we do that, that more and more people will express an interest. But again, if you know of anyone that you think might be interested, or if you're going around community councils, etc. yourselves, please let them know that there is that opportunity to come and to join the licensing forum.
And then there would be representatives from the trade on it as well. Yeah.
That's certainly what we'd be looking for. So we need from the trade. It's good to have community on there. There's usually police representation from Alcohol and Drugs Partnership, NHS, Police Scotland, etc. So we are hoping to get that back up and running, but without that input from the community and the trade, it's really very difficult. But we'd like to get representation from more than one area if we possibly can, but also on sales and off sales, so that you've got a really good mix of people around that table.
Yeah, and I think in the past it was useful for the board. You know, we had our meeting with them as well once a year. I thought that was very useful. So we're kind of missing that nowadays, but it would be good to get that up and running again. So
Absolutely.
okay, I don't see any further comments. Obviously, the other item on this is the over-provision policy statement. That's quite a complicated matter. I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Lauren.
In terms of over provision, it's one of the main questions and the main focus of the Engage consultation. We're trying to gather as much information as possible from people about where they're buying alcohol, about are they going into premises, are they drinking off sales? If it is off sales, is it within Aberdeenshire they're buying? Is it online they're buying? Is it in a different local authority area, because Aberdeenshire is so big and we've got a few neighbouring authorities. So we're trying to get a flavour from people about where they're getting alcohol from and if there's any particular issues within their communities. And hopefully when we meet with the those that are coming along this afternoon, we'll be able to see what the health statistics are looking like. We'll be able to get some information from Police Scotland about if there are an increase perhaps in incidences in any particular location, and we can use that to focus in on what the places should be. Part of the consultation is around whether or not we should be focusing on settlements rather than on council wards to look at in terms of our localities, and that's something that I think people are quite on board with, and so we're starting to shape our thinking around some of that. We're still in a very early stage. We're still in that gathering information process, but we'll be guiding the board through that whole over provision element into the next year. We're going to be looking at the number of premises that we have. We're going to be looking at the mix of premises that we have in terms of on sales, off sales, both, maybe online sales thrown in there as well, because that's a market that's increasing. We're going to be looking at how much of a capacity each of these premises have, and that's both in terms of what they've got in terms of number of people or the square meterage, but it's also in terms of the hours that they open. Are we seeing hours being an issue in any particular place? So there's an awful lot of work that will go in over the next few months by officers to drill down into all the data that we have to present that to you, so that you're able to have a good idea of what we have where. I remember the days I used to colour in on a map, a physical map with a highlighter to show where all of the different premises were. Hopefully we're a little bit more high tech than that now, and we'll be able to show you some maps as to where some of our licensed premises are on those maps. Just so that you've got that image or picture to see if you think that there's somewhere that's too concentrated or not. And all of these things is part of the evidence that you'll take into consideration when thinking about over provision. At the moment, we do not have an over provision policy. But we did say at the last time that we reviewed it that we were going to have a watching brief. And so we're going to have a look to see if there is problems coming forward. And then the pandemic hit. So we've had a very different last 5 years than what I think we'd really thought we were going to have when we looked at the policy last. So the landscape has changed. And so we maybe need to think about that and what evidence is available to us. There might be some gaps because of the pandemic and resources were turned in other directions. I do know that some of our partners are doing their own surveys to bring forward information to us as well. So we will have a lot of information to give you, and hopefully we'll be able to really think about all of these things through together, and we'll support the board through their decision making around that.
Okay, thank you, Lauren. Right, I'm not seeing any indications, so in that case, thank you for the report, and we look forward to looking at the consultation feedback. So move on to item 10, which is the date of the next meeting. Now, the date of the next full board meeting is the 22nd of February, but we will be having a special meeting for a hearing on the 18th of January. Can I just confirm that date?
Yes, Chair, 18th of January in the morning.
Okay, thank you. So if members can keep those in their diary. Right, I can confirm that the meeting has now concluded and that the recording will be stopped. Thank you for your interest in the business and your participation in the meeting today.